Yo, what is going on, guys? How you all doing? I'm coming to you live from Latvia. I'm leaving for Vienna on Tuesday. This has just been such an incredible experience so far. And I wanted to share with you today, some of you who followed Miggy 101, MGTOW 101, Men 101, he's had a couple of different channels, as you know. Some of you may have seen his video that he did on the Latvian man drought. And this is the article here. I've put it in the description below, as well as the subscribe button if you haven't yet subscribed, or if YouTube's unsubscribed, you make sure that the bell is smashed next to that, like Kate Mulvey smashed the wall, and the all button is selected so you get these videos on a daily basis. So Latvian man shortage leaves women, collective, lost for love. 2 decades after Latvia shook off Soviet communist rule, the country's women have survived the transition to capitalism better than men. They are better educated and are less likely to die young, which is pretty much the same all across the Western world these days. But a high male mortality rate means for many women it is hard to find a partner. Dania and Zane are both single and have come to a cafe in the center of Riga, which is where I'm staying at the moment, to chat about one of their favorite topics, the lack of decent men. The two women are both 29, beautiful, stylish, and well-educated, but it seems that in Latvia, there are simply not enough eligible men to go around. Dania has been working at a film festival where, you guessed it, 98% of her colleagues are women. There's nothing wrong, she says, there's nothing wrong with that, but just for the good balance, you would want to have some more men to flirt or chat with. It's just more interesting, she laughs. So the problem with that is that men don't want to flirt with you anymore because all of your feminist fuckwit colleagues have demonized it. They've created laws which basically have men thrown out of their jobs, demonized throughout the media, and essentially made out to be sexual predators simply for saying hello to you. So you can throw that idea of having men flirting with you at the workplace out the window. It's not happening anymore. You guys fucked it. That's why all my friends here have gone abroad and found boyfriends there, agrees Zane. Here we go, there's a little subtitle, gender imbalance. This will be good. While more boys are born, and before I go into this, I'm actually going to share with you my insights and my learnings from real Latvians and hearing it from real Latvian men and seeing the experience of overseas guys trying to pick up Latvian women, right? I haven't picked any up myself. I'm not here for that, and but I'm going to share that with you at the end of the video, so stick around. While more boys are born in Latvia than girls, the balance shifts dramatically in adulthood. A high early male mortality rate means there are 8% more women than men in the country. In the busy entry hall of the University of Latvia, Riga, the gender imbalance is visible. According to sociologist and lecturer Beba Bela, there are 50% more women enrolled there than men. She says this means that women often find it harder to find a partner with an, you guessed it, equal level of education. Doesn't that sound familiar from my Sydney man drought video? And by the time women want to settle down, men are dying younger and are 4 times more likely to commit suicide. The first time the gender imbalance appears is between 30 and 40. That's also an interesting observation, which I'm going to share my thoughts on at the end of this video. In this age group, the mortality rate for men is 3 times higher than the same age group for women. Car driving, alcoholism, and accidents in the workplace are mainly riskier for men than for women, she adds. Among the under 30s, there are almost 9,000 more men than women. But between the ages of 30 to 39, there are almost 3,000 more women than men. Women live 11 years younger than men, the highest disparity of life expectancy between the sexes in the EU. Macho culture is the next subtitle. Where men do outnumber women, however, is in Riga's many sports bars. Agris Rix, I think that's how you pronounce it, a 28-year-old software engineer, said there is still a macho culture in Latvia which encourages risky behavior such as fast driving, smoking, and especially heavy drinking. It is kind of perceived that it is manly, that the more alcohol you can handle, the more of a man you are. Everyone understands that it's kind of absurd, but it is still there. Psychoanalyst Ansis Stabingis, who treats men for depression and suicidal tendencies, says Latvia's transition to capitalism 20 years ago suddenly put massive pressures on men to succeed financially. No. It wasn't capitalism that put the pressure on men. It was the women that relied on men to make the money. The economic crisis, which has pushed unemployment up to 20%, has made those ambitions even more unattainable. As a result, according to the Latvian government, when the crisis hit in 2008, suicide levels, which were already one of the highest in the EU, went up by 16%. There are demands about how men should live, and if they cannot meet those standards, they fall into depression. Gee, I wonder who those demands are being placed on them by. And then they start to use alcohol or some gambling because they cannot solve that problem. ANSYS adds. Currently, more than 80% of suicide deaths are male. ANSYS believes that Latvian women sometimes prove more resilient when faced with a desperate situation. Yeah, because they just run to the men. They are more likely than men to ask for professional help. And with the highest rate of single mothers in the EU, he says women tend to keep going for the sake of their children. Subtitle, husband material. But looking after a family alone can also make it more difficult to find a partner. Dace Ruksani has spent her career looking long and hard at the issue. She is seen by many to be the Latvian version of, Latvian version of fictional character Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City. She is a sex columnist, author, and editor-in-chief at one of the country's most successful women's magazines, Lilith. The smartest girls are alone. The really beautiful girls are alone, if they are smart, Dace says. So basically, regardless of whether you're ugly or smart, ugly or pretty, the smartest girls are alone. That's because they're feminist cunts and nobody wants to be with them. I've seen some of these feminists. I've seen the purple hair. I've seen the green hair in Latvia. It's not very common, but it's there. And they've got a hell of an attitude on their shoulders. Believe me. They want to find partners who are equal to them. They want to find partners who are feminist bitches? I don't think so. But a man having all this choice doesn't need to be very perfect. He just sits in front of the TV and knows he can get a woman. And if she doesn't suit him, he will get another. Smart women simply don't want to have such men as their partners, she adds. Okay, so be alone then. Like, I don't understand what the problem is. You've gone to uni and you're told, oh, you're so smart, you're so intelligent, you're going to be so successful, you are an inspiration, everybody loves you, look at how great you are. Look, you just did your PhD in gender studies. That, just so inspiring. So now I'm going to share with you some of my insights on Mickey! By the way, I just want to say a quick shout out and a big thank you to The Price is Right Review for your donation, and Shane, who dropped $5 for a decent Latvian beer. Thank you, boys. I appreciate it. Or should I say, men. Okay, so let's get here, right? So I've actually seen girls going out in the center of Riga, which is kind of like the tourist area, not so much the local area per se. And usually the ones who are the most inviting of men to come and speak to them are the like Swedish or the Argentinian or the non-Latvian women, right? Because it's the Latvian women, they're actually still quite conservative. From what I've at least seen, my observations over the last few days, I know that's not, I guess, enough time to really make a full decision. Miggy Awaskamkwa says hi.
Oh, what's going on, Awaskamkwa?
There we go. So yeah, I've noticed that they're less approachable if they're Latvian women. They're more conservative. They don't kind of put out that inviting vibe, like come and speak to me, come and try and bang me. Yeah, you can chat to them, but you have to sort of really engage them in a very genuine way. If you start to try and be cheeky or just spit some game at them, as I've watched some other guys do, they're just like, yeah, no, fuck off, mate. You're not my type. I actually want someone decent and genuine. And, decent and genuine is a very subjective term, but they're, I guess, looking for someone who's not just straight coming for them with that. And I mean, there's about 4 other guys over here in Latvia that I've put up with. One Latvian local, he's a native, so you know who you are. Shout out to you. And a couple of guys that are actually not Latvian locals per se, but they've been here for like quite a number of years, almost 10 years, and they actually speak Latvian.
They're from Melbourne. Yeah.
They're from Melbourne? Oh yeah, mad. So they're actually from Australia as well, from Melbourne. So it's been really cool hanging out with all these guys, and there's one guy from Western Australia, the world's greatest philosopher. You know who you are. Anyway, so, you know, one or two, the guy from Western Australia has been like just gaming hard, you know, out on Tinder, trying to chat to every girl that he sees. And he's been very successful, I have to say. But he hasn't actually been picking up any Latvian girls. The girls he's picked up are, you know, they're Swedish or they're Argentinian or any other nationalities. If he has picked up any Latvian girls, I'm sorry, bro, I didn't realize, but that's been my observation so far. And he was showing me some of the, like when you go through Tinder, a lot of the Latvian girls are like real, they say they're not down for a one-night stand, but they really, like, I know girls say that in Australia, and it's not necessarily true, but they really mean it here. Like, they're not messing around at all. Like, I've seen some of the conversations that have been had, and they basically say, so how long you in Latvia for? And if they find out you're there for a couple of days, they're saying, well, you know, why are we even bothering having this conversation? Like, they're just, unless you're going to be there long term for them to have a genuine long-term relationship with, they're just not interested. And it was funny because one of the guys was actually lamenting, not lamenting, but sort of just saying, oh, you know, it's really hard to, like, the Latvian girls are just kind of like stonewall you a little bit. And I was like, yeah, look, it kind of sucks if you want to get laid by a Latvian girl. But by the same token, don't we speak out against thottery? You know, don't we sort of say, well, you know, these girls are just easy and, you know, just out for a one-night stand. Like, surely we actually don't want that kind of behavior. Like, we want women who are more accountable for their actions across the world, right? Unlike in the feminist countries. So I guess I actually have to give a little bit of a salute based on my observations only to the Latvian ladies out there who actually are quite self-respecting and don't just jump into bed with anyone at the drop of a hat. Anyway, I'll continue on this. So, you know, we hear the same thing. Oh, there are not enough eligible men to go around. I'm educated and I want an educated and eligible man. It's like, well, I'm sorry, because I'm seeing some dudes driving around in C63 AMGs in, you know, like some serious cars, like Porsche GT4s, like really nice cars. And they've got all the hot... Oh, how dare he. So yeah, we've got a bunch of really cool, there's a bunch of guys out there who are just obviously really successful. They're driving around with their mates in these $300,000-$400,000 cars with no women, or they're driving around with like a smoking hot young girl who, you know, it wouldn't matter if she had a university education or not. In fact, they probably don't have it. And that's probably the reason why they're in the car with that guy.
Yeah.
So Danya's been working at a film festival where 98% of her colleagues are women, and she is upset that she can't have men to flirt or chat with. So, you know, it's funny because whenever we see these female-dominated industries in Australia and in America and the UK, we always have like this, there's always a Me Too somewhere. Even if there's almost no man, that one man that comes in, right? If another girl gets jealous of the fact that another girl gets along with him better, she'll Me Too him. I actually was fortunate enough to have a copy of the book, How to Destroy a Man Now. It dropped into my inbox. I've been reading about it. It acknowledges in text that women have been given the advantage by men. It acknowledges that men have fucked themselves over by handing all this power to women. It also acknowledges that this is the perfect opportunity for women to take men down using the privileges they've been handed while still being perceived as the weak ones. Right? Kind of crazy, right? Just getting a call there. Sorry about that. So, while more boys are born in Latvia than girls, the balance shifts from it. Hang on. Let me just decline this and put this on silent so I don't keep getting hounded. Apologies, guys. All right. And so obviously we see the gender imbalance in the universities. Here we go. Among the under 30s, there are almost 9,000 more men than women. See, I'm not seeing any girls, young, hot girls walking around miserable. Most of these girls, they genuinely are not, like, they're not sort of out on the prowl, you know? They're not desperate. And they can attract guys easily, right? I see so many girls walking around with, like, the good-looking guys, you know? It's like this is nature's way. And it's the ladies that are just really unattractive that are walking around by themselves. It's the ladies that are really, 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 really unattractive that they're just like, yeah, well, we know there's no chance for us. And they had their chance when they were younger, and a lot of them probably took advantage of it. A lot of them probably had families. You know, maybe they've still got their husband and the husband's just at home. I don't know. But we see women walking around miserable in Australia. I don't see that here in the same way. It's a totally different dynamic. Between the ages of 30 to 39, there's almost 3,000 more women than men. Yeah, because, well, other than the obvious things about mortality and whatnot, men are going overseas because they realize there's more opportunity for them. Whereas the best opportunity for women here is to find someone who can provide for them, right? And I don't know why more Latvian women don't go overseas. Maybe they value the culture here. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to pick it apart. But they actually speak English and Latvian, and some of them in the younger generation speak Russian, but almost all of them in the older generation do speak Russian. Here we go. Mr. Gandalf says, laughable that you think your little YouTube fan club passes for courage. See, and it's funny because Mr. Gandalf here, if what I'm reading from him is correct, is the exact reason why people are not, we don't take people seriously. There we go. We won't be seeing Mr. Gandalf around anymore. So he's had his say. And yeah, where men do outnumber women, however, is in Riga's many sports bars. And there's a bar in Riga called Kiwi Bar. Now, I was actually at Kiwi Bar with Miggy and a few other guys that I mentioned earlier previously. And there was an older Latvian guy, and I don't know if he had a seizure, if he just fainted, if he passed out, if he tripped on something, but he actually fell like just a stone slab and actually smacked the back of his skull on a concrete corner, and it was like, oh, like I still get queasy thinking about it. And he had blood pouring from his head. You know, the ambulance came, and all the guys at the bar rushed around, and there was quite a few girls there as well, including staff. The guys ran over and, you know, immediately rolled him on his side because he was gurgling. Immediately rolled him on his side, supported his head, you know, just basically got him into a comfortable position until the police could come. But all the girls were sort of standing around and not doing a lot. And obviously once they realized, they called the ambulance from the bar. But that instinct right there of men to run in and protect, that is one of the many differences between men and women right there. We have always been the protectors, always. But yet feminists and these university ideologues refuse to admit this. And I'm seeing a lot of, like, especially guys in Latvia, we were walking along yesterday and they were speaking Russian, and Miggy was telling me what they were saying. They basically were just walking back to their house with alcohol, a group of about 6 or 8 of them. and they were just drinking as they walked along. And there's nothing wrong at all with that in itself. But I guess what I'm pointing to is a trend of guys that are probably maybe they're not as well educated as the women in terms of university education. Comes from life, not from some leftist professor, if they are a leftist professor, which most of them in universities are. And, you know, if you don't have qualifications and you don't have a high-paying job and you don't have a good income, it's like, well, what's your purpose as a man? You know, you obviously need to look after yourself first and really understand what it is that you want from yourself to be able to work out what that is. Something else that I observed the other day as well, by the way, we were told about these Russian bars where they've got Russian dancers and they've also got girls that go around to this group of clubs that's sort of owned by the same group of people. And there's like a scam going on. And one of the guys I'm actually here with got scammed. What they do is they flirt with you and, you know, they get all friendly with you and you go to the bar and they say, oh, you know, let's get a drink. And so you'll order a beer. And then, you know, we're pretty generous guys, right? Well, and, you know, say, for example, if you're in Latvia and you're on holidays and there's a couple of cute girls and you're like, yeah, I'll just throw a couple of dollars around, pick up a girl, you know, she's cute. You might say, oh, you know, and you just, you know, grab yourself a drink, I'll pay for it. Right, so they basically get guys to pay for their drinks, but there's particular drinks on the menu that cost 50 euros. Now, to the uninitiated, 50 euros is it's like you know, close to sort of 70, 80 bucks Australian. It's not cheap. So when you've got, and you'll have maybe, like I actually saw one guy fall victim to it. They were, you know, this girl was dancing with him and, you know, getting all friendly and she had her hand on the back of his neck and she had like these big nails and she's just like stroking the back of his neck and you could see him like, oh, just like creaming in his pants about, you know, all this attention that he's getting. And he was not a very good looking guy at all. So you know that he didn't get this kind of attention. And it wasn't that he wasn't good looking, didn't have the capability to be, but he just, you know, was unkempt and, you know, wearing a sort of a faded novelty shirt. And, you know, I know I'm wearing kind of like a novelty shirt at the moment as well, but it's more just to keep people away because I only want to be with my friends. But, you know, he's gone out by himself trying to pick up and, you know, he's come across this girl. Now, this particular girl, she's not Latvian, she's Russian. And all of these girls that are running this scam are Russian, they're not Latvian, which is interesting. And this particular girl was just all over him. And so he ordered drinks for both of them and one for himself. And they pretty much like chugged it down. He ordered another 2 drinks for them and they chugged that down. And when I left, he was about to order the 3rd round. So he would have been, including his own beers, a good 350 euros deep, I reckon, by the time he left that club. And that's if he stopped at the 3rd drink. That's if they stopped and said, okay, it's time for you to pay at the end of the 3rd drink. The way he was going, they would have had maybe 4 or 5 drinks on him. They would have made 500 euros. And these girls get commission on these drinks, right? These girls get commission on the honey trap that they lay. So guys, if you are going overseas and you are going out with girls, don't buy them drinks. Don't do it. And if you are going to buy them a drink, just say, oh, which drink are you getting? And they'll be like, oh. Just like, oh, no, which one is it? Like, show me on the menu. And if they can't tell you straight away what drink it is that they got on the menu because they know it in their head, you better know something's up. Anyway, you know, men are suffering massively in Latvia from what I was reading before, from suicide. 80% of suicide deaths are men. More than 80% of suicide deaths are men. And Latvia has the highest rate of single mothers in the EU. And let's think about that for a moment. So if they've got the highest rate of single mothers in the EU, this has obviously been a growing trend for a while. And what happens when you have sons that are raised by single mums? Well, those sons don't do as well at school. You know, they are not as masculine. they are not raised in the same way. So you kind of get to that point where it's like, well, the guys that are being raised by these single mums are not masculine. They're not desirable to the women that, think that they're already entitled because they've gone to university and they're women. But then on top of that, they can't find any girls that are even close to what they want or what they expect or what they think that they deserve. Right? They want the Chads. And let me tell you, the Latvian Chads have got the pick of the crop. That's just some real talk right there. And Latvian women sometimes prove more resilient when faced with a desperate situation. It's like that's because they've got more options that are being handed to them on a silver platter. Dase Ruksane spent her career looking long and hard at the issue. She's seen to be the Latvian version of fictional character Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City. I don't know who is idolizing Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City, but those people are clearly not too smart. I'm just saying, like, if that's who she's likened to, then my God, the advice that people must be getting would be horrendous. Because, they want to find partners who are equal to them, but equal to them by their perception, not by the perception of others. So when their perception of themselves is that they have this huge social value, when their perception of themselves is that they're so well educated and so intelligent and so independent, it's like, so you want a guy that's independent. Well, if you get a guy that's independent, he's going to be independent of you. He doesn't need you. So if you treat him like shit, he's going to walk away. And then you're going to wonder, where have all the good men gone? It's the same tired old diatribe we hear every freaking day from these feminists and these social commentators in the US, the UK, all of the Western world, and increasingly in some of the Latin American countries that are becoming more and more feminist. Smart women simply don't want to have men that are below their perception of themselves as their partners. I don't know. It's crazy. Like the more you read, when you read articles like this, and when you start to have the knowledge of the way that language is used to skew things, and you start to read between the lines, and then you actually see these things in person, it's extremely fascinating to see how everything converges together, and you get to see the whole picture. And you'll talk about one particular element of the problem, and people say, "Oh no, that's not the problem." And you're like, "Well, that's not the problem. It's part of the problem." And when you get thousands of parts of the problem, it makes the problem. So how do you think that you actually get rid of the problem? You take the thousands of parts of the problem away, and the problem no longer exists. But we're not allowed to talk about any of the parts, because any of those parts just might hold a woman accountable for her actions. And before I go, guys, I want to tell you about one other experience that Mickey and I had when we were coming back from the center of Riga to where we're staying at the moment. Confucian Migtar just dropped 10 euros, your early Christmas present, brother. I thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that, man. That will get me a number of Yandex taxis to and from the city center. But yeah, I guess the last thing I wanted to really share was that I saw this guy, and he came into the burger place that we'd walked into the other night, and he was screaming, and he was bent over, and he was crying and screaming, and he had blood coming out from his face, and he had tissue over it, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, admittedly, I was feeling uncomfortable. I didn't really know what to do. I'm like, is this like drugs? Is someone just punched him? Like, I didn't know any of the story, so it was. I'm like, in my head, I'm trying to quickly process what could have possibly happened and what we need to do about the situation. Anyway, the girls behind the counter sort of like just walked out from behind the counter and walked right away from the situation, because they were obviously uncomfortable as well. But instead of actually looking at what they could do to solve it, they just walked away. And I saw this one of the guys who was actually standing in line to order his food, he just came over and he just took the guy by the shoulders and he just led him outside and just opened the door and just sort of pushed him out and closed the door behind him. And he's like, oh yeah, it's just, he'll be fine, it's just too much drugs. And yeah. So we finished our meal, and the whole time I was thinking about what was going on. When I actually walked outside, on my left hand, sitting down, there was a Latvian guy and this particular guy who had been bleeding from his face and crying, and he was sitting there, bent over, with, there was like water and blood on the ground and a bloody tissue, and he'd sort of calmed down a bit. And it turned out what had actually happened was that this guy had been pepper sprayed, right? Like pepper sprayed at close range in the face, and it was like causing him a nosebleed, and his eyes were stinging. He was in agony. And man, if I got sprayed close range in the face with pepper spray, I'd probably be feeling the same way. And I don't know if I'd react the same way, but I'd be pretty freaking distraught about it. Like, it would not be a pleasant experience at all. And I just thought, the girls are basically walking away from the problem, and the younger guys are just pushing the problem away from there to make the girls feel more comfortable and so they don't have to deal with it. And I was like, just made me really think about humanity and the way that we treat other men in times of need, especially if those guys really need our help, because we don't always know what they've gone through until we've actually witnessed them going through it, or stopped and listened to hear their story. So it's a really sad state of affairs, and I'm writing a couple of blog posts at the moment. I've got one that's ready to go. It's called The Brotherhood Economy. So I'm going to be putting that up on sydneymigtow.com in the next 24 to 48 hours. And I just wanted you guys to really, think about how we treat other men and how we care for and show compassion for other men in our daily lives, especially men less fortunate than us. If those guys are homeless, if they're going through some relationship struggles, if they are just simply going through a hard time, because I know it might be hard to take on the burden of helping them at that moment in time, but those people won't be in that state forever. You need to help drop some red pills, help them to understand that they're capable of more. Give them examples of how they've actually been really capable and really strong, and have so much potential, and let them know that they have the capability within themselves. And all you guys watching this right now, all 200 of you, do have so much capability. You've got so much strength within you, and some of you may not feel it. Some of you listen to me and you're like, man, I wish that, like, I know that some of you look at me and, probably looking at me the wrong way, thinking, oh man, I wish that I was as confident and strong as Sydney. It's like, man, I have my moments of insecurity. We all do. I have my moments where, like, I have to break outside of my comfort zone and move to the next step. I have my moments where I'm just like, what the fuck is the point? But it's through understanding my place in the world and what my purpose is, and that sometimes when you start a task, you should. So I actually gave this advice to someone the other day. Find a task that you're prepared to dedicate yourself to for a little bit and do it. And even if you find that you maybe don't necessarily like doing what it is that you're doing, don't keep doing it, because you don't want to be in a situation where you're like, oh, I'm doing everything because you love it. There's going to be some things that you do that you don't love. There's going to be some things that you need to do that you need to push through to help yourself grow. This is not about doing something you love. It's about building resilience. It's about building strength. It's about improving your skills and growing yourself as a person. So the next time you're facing a challenge, rather than give up, push through, right? Surprise yourself with what you can achieve and move to the next level. Man, I don't know how I went from a Latvian man shortage to a philosophy lesson, but I hope you guys got something from this video, and I really appreciate you guys that donated. Thank you so much. Obviously, my PayPal and Patreon below. I'm not going to go on about that. I really appreciate everyone's comments, everyone's likes and shares, because there are other people out there that need to know this. These these articles that the media puts out, just don't believe the lies. There's always two sides to every story. And hope you guys are inspired to help another man the next time you see one in need. Peace.